She said, I left in 2021. I wasn't born in, but I've lost all my friends or so called friends. I was in for 35 years and I just turned 60, and I find it hard to make friends, meaning now. I know there's others like me, but I just don't know how to find them. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the comments that have been left on our numerous videos. Some of them are thought-provoking, some of them are really funny.
Yeah, there were some really great comments, just really sweet, supportive, nice stuff. And also a couple things that I thought, wow, it made me appreciate how much we all have in common. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm having a bad day or something specifically bad is happening in my life, I just feel like it's just me. I'm the only one that this is happening to. Everybody else has their stuff together, and we all have a shared experience when certain things make us uncomfortable. The first one that came to mind was by at Mike Gonzalez 503. He said, "My sister texted me to invite me to the memorial. I've been struggling since then on saying more to her, from asking her to stop texting me, period, about her reminding me, from asking her to stop texting me, period, to reminding her that I hate their religion. And I ended up doing nothing and wishing I would. And I can tell you that's a real shared experience for me. Like whenever my mother would text me, she stopped texting about a year ago, but whenever she would text me, I would just feel crummy for a couple days. Just feel lousy and emotionally
Yeah.
icky, just gross. I don't know. You have that experience, Fallon?
Yeah, sometimes it would feel like you maybe had made some progress in your healing. You had kind of let those things or those wounds kind of heal up a little bit.
Right.
And then you would randomly get an unexpected email or a text or a voicemail, and it would just feel like it ripped that scab off, like just reopen that wound. Um, wasn't always ready to deal with it. So
Right.
it could be tough. You're excited that someone's reaching out to you, but also you're kind of taken aback by how much it hurts.
And it always has attached, just like Mike here says, that the point of the text was to invite him to the memorial. He's not inclined to return at all. He's someone who used to be in Bethel. He knows how it works. In fact, after this
Yeah.
comment, we ended up having some really nice conversations on Instagram. But so I've had this experience, and as abusive as the shunning policy is, I've actually realized that there are some upsides to it. And after a while, let me add that, because it is brutal at first, there's no upside to it. But after a while, when I realized that
Right.
my family was just going to be toxically entrenched in their ridiculous religion, and they were not going to change, and that I was just getting frustrated interacting with them, I noticed that when they stopped messaging me, and then I had time to be by myself and sit with things, I think I've said that before, just learning to sit with a bad feeling, uh, then I started getting healing and started doing better. And it's a messed up situation, but the upside is that after a while, the lack of communication has turned into a good thing for me, because it was never a communication that helped my mental health.
Yeah, it wasn't a two-way communication.
Hmm.
It was like, hear me, but I don't want to hear you.
Conversation, kind of how they are with their Bible students, where they're sitting there with them. It's not a conversation. It's you read this, you answer this, you agree with me. Next paragraph.
That's a good way to put it. We do really love when you guys interact with us. The comments that you leave us, we take the time to read them all. We're a small channel, we can do that. But it gives us a way to know you, to hear your voices, to know your stories, um, and also to know the topics that you're interested in. What would you like to hear more about? That helps us kind of steer the ship in a way that's relevant for our viewers and listeners. So thank you for all that.
It's kind of a rowboat at this point, but yeah.
It's a tugboat, first of all.
Would you believe a canoe? Uh, you had a couple there. I kind of jumped the gun there and jumped in real early.
No,
What one did
that's
you want to
okay.
share?
Um, I also had one from Mike Gonzalez. he's just kind of like a jack of all trades. Some of them are funny, some of them are really thoughtful. On our video that was about the Bible story book and how horrendous the artwork was, he left this comment and it literally made me laugh out loud. And I even responded to it and I said, "This made me giggle." He said, "I used to go to sleep every night listening to these tapes because I had trouble with nightmares. The pictures were seared into my head, but the guy who read them in Spanish had a much better reading voice than the geezer that read the English one."
Yeah,
I don't know. It just struck me as really funny.
his voice was awful. It would just put you to sleep. I think we said this when we had with our Bible, my book of Bible stories
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
I tried to listen to the Dinah gets into trouble episode. I tried to listen to it while I was driving in my car, and I found my mind just wandering. I'm like, this isn't safe. I could fall asleep at the will. It's so just deep in my psyche that is the voice you fall asleep to.
I don't know if it was the Bible story book or maybe it was the listening to the Great Teacher book, but I think one of them was Brother Schroeder, and he had that very distinct um, way of speaking or accent. Kind of reminded me of like the Kennedys.
Right. This is from the Bible. You will listen to it. That's not it at all. He, I think he probably got the job, even though he has a subpar voice, because he's governing body, and who's going to tell him no? Whereas, like Mike said, the guy in the Spanish language version had a beautiful voice. So he may have been selected for his merits rather than just that he was GB.
Right. Another funny one on that same video was from Augie Muskie. It said, "I discovered your channel yesterday. So you're saying a Christian and an atheist can be friends?" All caps. Imagine that. The picture that upset my kids was the baby being held by one foot, about to be chopped in half. Nighty night, kids.
Yikes. Yeah, seriously.
I love it.
Crying out loud.
Um, it's been on several videos, and it
I'm looking
just
at it right now.
says, "Is this a no to Christmas? No to Christmas? So you're saying no to Christmas?" I'm like,
It's
what?
Brethren Lee 1404. It's a yes to Christmas for me. I love Christmas, and I'm an atheist, and we should have a mashup of me saying I'm an atheist on this thing because I say it so often. But there's I love it. It's fun. Tree. I got a little Christmas choo-choo that goes around the tree, and a little white rug that looks like snow, and there's presents stacked and stockings. The house has, um, you know, a crazy unit of measure of lights on it. It's so fun. I love it. I lean into it hard, making up for all those years. How about you?
Yeah, I love Christmas too. Um, just yeah, I think overall people are in a more thoughtful mood, and I love having the house full. The kids are all here, and there's just so much excitement in the air, and we're making cookies, and
Hmm.
just channeling our inner Hallmark movie.
Yep.
I think it's good.
Well, I think that kind of brings us to this
So
last comment that you were going to share.
yeah,
Maybe I stepped on you there a little bit. That leads us into what we want to talk
no,
about this
you're
week.
you're right. Let me see if I can get it pulled up here.
Just checking that my other device was recording. Got to have two angles on this bitch. Sometimes I make a weird face. Well, this week, so I don't get sweaty and red, I turned up the
Gmail.
AC. It's really nice in here now.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I can see you getting pink.
I'm not even like
My
I
little
don't know what it
piglet.
is. I actually feel really good now, and I'm not hot. I don't know why I'm turning. Viewers, every episode, if you watch closely, I get pinker and pinker and pinker as we go along, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm just getting amped up because I'm talking about stuff that's ridiculous or what, but I don't know. It's getting flustered in your presence, girl.
It's just your natural glow.
Right.
So the last one that stood out to me is from Angela Edmond, 5836. And this one really made me think. She said, "I left in 2021 I wasn't born in, but I've lost all my friends or so-called friends. I was in for 35 years and I just turned 60 and I find it hard to make friends, meaning now. I know there's others like me, but I just don't know how to find them. And that's a very true statement. When you're fresh out or you're in your exit process, there's this void. You're just suddenly going to be adrift. Your old social network is cut you right off, snipped you out of there. Um, but you may not have anybody to replace them yet. If you're not close with your neighbors, your relatives, your coworkers, it's hard, and you might suddenly feel lonely. So I thought maybe
Yeah.
we could just chat about that for a minute, the process of making friends after you reach the outside.
I think it's a great idea because it's a problem that I think a lot of us have, unless, there's certainly a percentage of people that were leaving and they were leaving and kind of going with friends, or already had friends outside. But a lot of us, like myself included, I had nobody at all. And it
Yeah,
was just like all of a sudden, everybody, it was right around the time of the divorce, so that was a separate issue. Really didn't have anything to do with the religion. But so then suddenly I'm single and don't know anybody. I'm like, whoa, what do I do? It's tough.
panic.
Ah, where's my tribe? Left me on the hill to die.
I read an interesting little article. It was really brief, and I think we're going to link it in this video. But it's on that exact topic, making friends once you're on the outside. And it made several really good points. But one thing that I took away from it was that you may have to make a conscientious effort to open yourself up to being friends with
Mhm.
non JWs or non ex JWs, even because there's so much programming that's been pounded into your brain for the last however many decades. Even when you're on the outside, you may subconsciously feel like, well, I can't be friends with worldly people. So let me just dive in to the XJW community exclusively.
You're right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You might find your kindred spirit best friend. And if you do, amazing. But there's also so many beautiful, amazing, interesting people in the world. You have to not let yourself be closed off to making those connections also.
And it's not even, in my experience, in my own experience, it wasn't even something I was aware that I was doing, because I was programmed so
Yeah.
long to have friends who were Jehovah's Witnesses. And of course, everybody's the same in the congregation. Everybody is the same, right? You're just supposed to be the standard publisher. And independent thinking, independent like interests aren't really a huge thing. I mean, there's play a few musical
Yeah.
instruments. But if I went over to a worldly kid's house, they had posters all over their wall, and they were working on 5 different projects they thought were interesting. Went to my house, my wall was blank because I was just go to school and be a JW boy, and I had things that interested me, but not nearly as much. And so it was so just it was just so distilled down to just be that. I didn't really, and of course, excuse me, I'm wandering off there a little bit, but it was. Don't be a basic Jehovah's Witness, and also these 100 people in your congregation are your friends. That's it. So going out
Right.
and making new friends was not a muscle that I had exercised at all.
So we thought, I don't know, I just thought we could share a couple of suggestions, things that worked for us. Maybe it would work for you,
Right.
maybe not, but maybe it would inspire you outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
The first thing that I would recommend, and we kind of just briefly touched on this a second ago, make friends with yourself first. When you're in the organization, there's this common, like unspoken belief that if you are not constantly advancing kingdom interests, that you're somehow sinning, you're being lazy, you're being slothful. So every second of every day is supposed to be preoccupied with something that advances the organization. So when you're on the outside, do you know yourself? I mean, do you know what you're interested in? Do you know what things trigger your personality or your trauma reflex? So I recommend taking some of that free time and reinvesting it into yourself first. That will give you a good starting point to know what kind of people you might be interested in being friends with, or what is something that you could have in common with another person.
How did you do that when you first came out of the organization? How was that practically done for you?
Um, I looked at all the things in the past that I wanted to do, and I told myself, eventually I'll do that thing,
Yeah.
but never did because there was just no time. I was super into like vinyl records,
Yeah.
and I always said, yeah, I'm gonna like, you know, next time I'm in like a bigger, more metropolitan area, I'm gonna, like visit some vintage record shops and,
Hmm.
like
They always
pour
seem
over
so
records
worldly
and
to
start
me.
building my collection and what?
Those record shops always seem so worldly to me. You go in there and there's just like punk bands up and there's posters
Oh,
everywhere. Like, so
yes.
you kind of shied away from it. And now I've
There
started
might be
a
a
good
Jimi Hendrix
collection.
poster.
Oh, heavens. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I was walking around my house and it was largely empty and I didn't have any friends yet. And I was like looking at something in the wall. I'm like, that's been there for years. Do I even like that there? And then it's kind of triggered do I like, what do I like? And I
Any good
realized
stuff?
how saturated I had been with the organization. And then I just thought, okay, let's, and now I've got, little RC cars behind me and other nonsense. And it's really fun to just to kind of explore yourself. I wholeheartedly agree with that suggestion.
Yeah. Um, I think maybe I've shared this little story before, but as far as learning to just enjoy things that may seem trivial or pointless to the JW brain. One of the kids in our family plays basketball, and I was attending one of his games. And across the gymnasium, I was watching these two moms talk to each other. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I was just watching their interaction. So they're so excited. One of them's like keeping score, and these kids are little. They're like 8, 9. One of them's keeping score. They both have on like basketball mom shirts, like I'm Joey's mom or whatever. And they were just so cute. They were adorable. And you could just tell, even though the game in the grand scheme of things didn't matter, they were so invested. They were all in for their kids for this little community event. And the former JW half of my brain was watching their interaction and thinking, why are they doing this?
Yeah,
Like, why are they going so hard for this
seems
silly
trivial.
little
Yeah,
thing that doesn't matter?
yeah,
I mean, it's not like there's scouts in the audience. But then the separated half of my brain, the free half of my brain said, because they can. It's not hurting anybody. They're enjoying it. They're supporting their child. They're branching out in their community. Just because they're not, spending every free second promoting the organization, they're not thwarting the gospel. They're not suppressing the Lord.
yeah,
they're they're sowing back into themselves and to the people that matter in their lives. And it's beautiful. And I think a lot of XJWs, when they're fresh out, need to learn how to just enjoy something for what it is, even if it's
yeah,
silly, if it's kids basketball or anime or stamp collecting or whatever.
yeah. That's interesting because it is very much something that we're taught to always be thinking, working toward the new system, always be working for the
Yeah.
organization, and always very rarely be in the moment. And unless being in the moment involves thinking about the way that the organization is interpreted in Scripture, unless it's that, it's not, you can't be in the moment. And that's why they discourage meditation I mean, the dictionary definition of meditation, where you sit and be quiet
Right.
with your thoughts and let your thoughts calm down and find some calm and quiet. They don't like you to do that. In fact, they call it an opportunity to let the demons in. But of course, once we wake up from the cult, we go, at least I did. I don't know how to sit in the moment at all. And once I've started exercising that, I really have a lot more to work to do. It's just such a great thing to be in the moment, and like those moms were, they're in the moment with their kids. They're having an experience. They're
Yeah.
living their lives. It's lovely.
And life goes by so fast. It's refreshing to really live those moments and not just rush through them. And I think for members and former members, you may not have a lot of coping skills. So you enjoy almost constantly being distracted and not just sitting with your thoughts, because if there's something that makes you anxious or that you don't agree with, you're not allowed to openly disagree, and you don't have any coping skills to process that conflict inside yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there's value in that. Um, I found another one that I thought had value, but I also came with kind of a little bit of a warning for me. And I think I'll get your input and others in the comments. And that was the XJW groups. I found online very quickly after leaving that you can go to meetup.com and find in pretty much every metro area an XJW group of people. And a lot of them are lovely. And it is really can be very cathartic to talk about your experience and have people who understand what that's like. Sometimes you feel a little alone out in the world when people don't know what a you feel like a weirdo, even though you're not. And it was very nice, but it also, I was just waking up, and it was also very hard to hear so much trauma because I was already dealing with my own stuff. And that kind of beat me up a little bit before I realized I need to step back from this. This is knocking me around too much emotionally. And then I found that even my worry was that making friends elsewhere who hadn't been Jehovah's Witnesses, they wouldn't understand me. But I'm not that special. I'm a human being. I'm easy to understand relatively. And I'm everybody's unique. I get it. But you can make great friends outside. And then I found that, oh, this is so refreshing to not have to think about that all the time. And then, hey, what's this guy into? Became great friends with my next door neighbor, Mike. And hey, what's this guy about? What's he into? What is he like? Oh, he does machine shop stuff. Interesting. And I learned a bunch of stuff from him. And I had such a great experience making, friends with him and a lot of other people who weren't former Jehovah's Witnesses. I still have a few former Jehovah's Witness friends, but it can be a lot at first to be swimming around all that trauma when you're dealing with it on your own already.
Yeah. I have personally never done any of the meetups beyond just running into a random friend from the past. As far as
Mm,
like group meetups, I've never
yeah.
done those. Um, I have discussed them or talked about them with several people whose opinion I trust. And from what I understood, it just seemed like it was a pretty polarizing experience. Either you were in a group that constantly wanted to revisit old trauma
Hmm.
in a way that's not productive,
Hmm.
swapping war stories, kind of.
Hmm.
Or you were in a group that maybe talked about those things to some degree, but it was more forward thinking, forward momentum. Where are you at now? What things are going right for you? What victories are you celebrating? Um, and it was just more positive. So I feel like you could maybe have one experience or the other.
Sure.
Um, but I would encourage people, if you're fresh out and you haven't been able to get any mental health services or emotional support, be careful. You might not be in a place emotionally or mentally to reopen that trauma so quickly. Or if you're an empathetic person, you have a strong empathy, you may not be in a place where it would be healthy for you to take on someone else's trauma or their emotional load.
Right.
So engage that critical thinking and try to, discern, like, am I ready for this, or do I need to work on my healing first before I jump back in?
Yeah. It strikes me as similar as why certain other channels have said, don't get into activism immediately. And that certainly was the case for me. I had a couple of attempts of maybe giving the old public talks I used to give, but re-giving them on a channel, and re-giving them with all the exposed fake information the organization puts in there. I also had an idea of just rereading the My Book of Bible Stories, but again with facts. And
Right.
each time I attempted, this is over the years before we started this, each time I attempted it, I was just like, I can't do this. Emotionally, I was just like, I get through an hour of prep and I would just, feel awful. And so, and then when we started this together, I think that shared load, even, also some years having gone by, I think that both those things helped.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
I think it helps that both of us are just naturally more outgoing. If you're an introvert, it may be especially difficult to get started rebuilding that
Yeah.
social circle. So I would say something else that helped me is to just start literally as close to home as you can. And that's just with your neighbors, your physical neighbors. We had neighbors growing up, and I'm not going to say that we didn't know their names, but we weren't really allowed to socialize with them. And that was also difficult when you were a kid because you want to play with kids your own age that are
Yeah.
close by.
Hmm.
So we had two little neighbor kids that lived next to us. And anytime my brother and I would sneak out where our yards met to play, Star Wars or Legos or whatever, inevitably one of my parents would yell out the window, like, time for lunch, come inside.
Oh yeah, I remember
Um,
that. My mom doing that. I remember
oh,
your mom
yeah,
doing that. Yeah.
the old time for lunch.
I'm like, it's 2:45.
Um,
What the hell kind of schedule are those JWs on?
so now I do make a point to know my neighbors. Anytime I've moved, I try to introduce myself as soon as possible. If I see them out working in their yard or walking their dog or whatever, I always make a point to say hi. Um, if I see a neighbor, packing up their car, or it's clear that they're getting ready to leave, I always say, like, do you want me to get your mail for you? I'll keep an eye on your house.
I'll go through your
Just
stuff.
be a neighbor. Just be a neighbor, and then it's easier to be a friend.
Yeah. My neighbors, I remember they're behind me through this window. There's a house, super nice family. And years ago, before I was out, they invited me to do something. I don't remember what it was, and I was like, no. I gave the classic, no, I'm busy that day. It's just
Mhm.
BS because I, had to go out in service and didn't really feel like, felt like I couldn't make friends with other people, and so they
Yeah.
kind of just gave up trying. And then, but after I was out, they kind of noticed a little difference in me, and then thought, what the hell, let's try again. And the fact that they tried is great for them. I love that it says such good things about them that they tried again. Um,
Yeah.
but mm, and we went to a farmer's market. It was awesome. But and now I'm actually really close friends with them. We do Christmases and birthdays, and that's really lovely together. But I the worry might be that if you don't think you're likable in your neighborhood, it's probably just that people are going, well, that's the Jehovah's Witness. They don't go when you invite them somewhere. So they might not be trying anymore, not realizing something's changed. Not saying that you should put up a bulletin that you're no longer in a cult, because that might not go well either. But if you
Right.
really open up there and start making conversations and give out those open vibes, that'll probably very quickly change. So if you're thinking that you're not good at this, well, when I was thinking I wasn't good at it, it was really just that I'd always told everybody for 3 years on my block that I wasn't interested. And then they just gave up.
Right.
So,
I went through the same thing with my coworkers. I, for years, consistently got asked, "You want to catch a movie after work?" we're going to go grab a cocktail. And after just years of me saying, oh, I have plans, I'm busy, which is baloney,
Hmm.
eventually those invitations dried up. So I would say if you have a coworker that you feel comfortable with, that maybe you're on friendly terms with, even if you're not quite friends, just be honest. Just say, hey, I'm making some social changes, trying to change up my routine. And next time you guys go out for lunch, I want to tag along. Or, maybe I will catch that movie or have that drink after work. And just start there. They probably already know your personality to some degree. So there's something there that they like. So just start there. You don't have to tell them you just escaped from a cult.
Right.
Just say you're making some changes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great way to put it. And then you don't have to share all too much information early on. It can kind of be a weird thing. Um, I remember one of when I started making a friend. It was, and I ran into just a random person, and we both had Volkswagens. We and several of his friends all went down to this drag strip, and they had this big Audi Volkswagen day, and everybody's just having fun, and it was nice, and I made some buddies. We had a nice experience, and the next thing I know, I've got my little gutless little Volkswagen in a drag race, and having fun, making buddies. It was really a nice, positive experience. So,
It could be over anything. It could be
mhm.
over cars. It could be over volunteer service. That's been one of my favorites. There's so many ways to serve your community and also meet new people and bond over random experiences. We volunteered at like a food pantry here in our community. Um, and there's also a large need for volunteers at senior living facilities. There are tons of seniors that are living in facilities, care facilities, that almost never get visitors, if ever. So they're excited to talk about anything, literally any topic. They are ready to listen and discuss. And you can hear so many amazing stories and learn so many great lessons. Um, and if you can make a friend along the way, it's even better.
That's interesting. I shortly there after I got out, my girlfriend worked at a retirement facility, and then I went in there and just called bingo, and then I think I did a sign language class too. It was kind of hilarious, actually. This group of
Yeah.
elderly women were a laugh riot. We had a good time. It it's just been fun. It's been at first I was terrified because I was so incompetent at it, but then it became a very fun experience to meet new people, and it's just been a really positive thing because all my friends know all the facets of my life, and none of them go, oh well, that's the way you feel about that scripture or that thing that governing body teaches. Well, then we don't approve of you, and we're going to go ahead and soft shun you even inside the congregation. It's just there's just
Yeah.
no judgment relationships among good people who care about each other. It's lovely.
Oh, one last thing I do want to say. Um, I just want to say thank you so much for all the kind comments and messages that made their way to me. A couple of weeks ago, a family member of ours passed away. So Jason was able to host without me. He had our beautiful friend Rebecca on, and you guys are amazing. I really enjoyed your episode. I just needed a little time to spend with my family to kind of mourn and heal together. So thank you so much for all the positive feedback. That really meant more than you guys know.